paper 1, question 3, the structure question, I think it's really important to bear in mind that this is simply testing AO2 in exactly the same way that question 2 is testing AO2 for language. In essence, if you take a look at the mark scheme for both question 2 and question 3, you'll see that in terms of the skills that are being asked for, they have absolute parity. They're looking for us to identify the structural features, give examples of them, and comment on the effect of them. In that sense, when we're thinking about what features we should actually be getting students to identify, I think it's worth bearing in mind that some features do cross over. If you imagine a kind of Venn diagram between language and structure, you do have things like patterns of repetition that would sit equally well for both questions there. So I don't think we should be too anxious about the kinds of features that we're encouraging students to look for. If we take a look back at that mark scheme, you will see that we are looking for 3 distinct approaches. We're looking for students to identify features, exemplify them, comment on effect, and we've used those strands of the mark scheme to actually build a method within the textbook. To keep it very, very clear, this is an 8-mark question in very little time, so we've tried to come up with a very concise method for students to use. The other thing that we've done in the textbook is actually use extracts that really play around with time and with tense and with perspective, that maybe use flashback, that have really interesting patterns perhaps within the text itself, within the sentence structure, so that they can really see different structural features at work and actually begin to see the possibilities of them and the impact that they might have on a text, so that when they come to the exam and they meet an unseen text, they can actually start to think about which of those features are still in there underlying the structure of the unseen material that they're working with. The other thing that I've tried to do within the textbook is to think about creating a method for students to make more meaningful comments on the affective structure. This is something that students tend to find more difficult. It's the higher level skill in the mark scheme. So what I've tried to do is encourage students to think about what the structural features actually do to the text before they try to think about the impact on themselves or the effect on the reader. So, for example, are the structural features adding something to the text? Are they shifting the focus in the text in some way? Are they creating something within the text? And we've used those dynamic verbs to try and kickstart the comments on effect before students actually think about the effect on themselves as a reader. So in that way, we're trying to build skills within our students to help them avoid saying those very simple, generic, meaningless comments on effect that really keep them in the lower reaches of the mark scheme, so that they're able to push up and say something that much more meaningful.